Darius Coleman's private jet touched down at Miami International Airport at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. He'd spent the day in meetings in San Francisco, flown to Austin for an afternoon pitch presentation, and now arrived in Miami for the Southeast Tech Summit that started the next morning at 9 a.m. At 34 years old, Darius was the founder and CEO of Quantum Systems, a cloud computing and artificial intelligence company that had gone public 2 years ago with a valuation of $12.3 billion. His personal net worth was estimated at $847 million by Forbes, making him one of the youngest black billionaires in the tech industry. But looking at Darius as he walked through the airport, most people wouldn't guess his net worth. He wore a designer hoodie that looked like standard streetwear, comfortable jeans, limited edition sneakers, and carried a simple black backpack. He traveled without an entourage, preferred commercial flights when practical, though tonight's tight schedule had required the company jet, and generally maintained a low profile that allowed him to move through the world without constant attention. This anonymity was sometimes convenient, but it also meant people made assumptions about him based on his appearance rather than his accomplishments. Darius had a reservation at the Grand Meridian Hotel, a luxury 5-star property on Collins Avenue in Miami Beach. The hotel was hosting the Tech Summit, and Darius was scheduled to give the keynote address the next morning. His assistant had booked a suite weeks ago, confirmed multiple times, and ensured all details were arranged. But Darius had also been researching the Grand Meridian for another reason. His investment firm, Coleman Capital, was considering acquiring the Meridian Hotel Group, a boutique luxury chain of 12 hotels across the United States. The acquisition would be Darius's first major move into the hospitality industry, and he'd spent the past 6 months conducting due diligence. Part of that due diligence included unannounced visits to various Meridian properties to observe operations firsthand. He'd visited 3 other hotels in the chain incognito, experiencing the service as a regular guest would. The results had been mixed. Some properties showed excellent operations, others revealed management problems and inconsistent service standards. Tonight's visit to the Grand Meridian Miami would be his 4th evaluation, though he hadn't informed the hotel that the potential new owner would be checking in. He wanted to see how they treated a young black man in casual clothes arriving late at night, as opposed to how they'd treat him if they knew he was a billionaire tech CEO. Darius's Uber pulled up to the Grand Meridian at 12:43 a.m. The hotel's exterior was impressive, a gleaming white Art Deco building with elegant lighting, manicured tropical landscaping, and a grand entrance with uniformed doormen. One of the doormen approached as Darius got out of the car. The doorman's welcoming smile faltered slightly when he saw Darius's casual attire and single backpack, but he maintained professionalism. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Grand Meridian. Checking in?" "Yes, thank you." Darius walked through the doors into a lobby that was even more impressive than the exterior. Soaring ceilings with crystal chandeliers, Italian marble floors, contemporary art installations, and luxurious seating areas created an atmosphere of understated opulence. At this late hour, the lobby was quiet. A few guests sat in the bar area off to the side, and a single person stood behind the reception desk, a man in his mid-40s wearing a formal hotel uniform with a manager's badge that read Stephen Walsh, Night Manager. Walsh looked up from his computer as Darius approached. His expression shifted immediately from neutral to suspicious, his eyes scanning Darius from his hoodie to his backpack to his sneakers. "Can I help you?" Walsh's tone was not welcoming. "Yes, I have a reservation, Darius Coleman." Walsh's fingers moved slowly across his keyboard, as if searching reluctantly. "Coleman, I'm not seeing a reservation under that name." Darius pulled out his phone and opened his email. "I have a confirmation. The reservation was made 3 weeks ago. Confirmation number GD47829MC. Walsh glanced at the phone screen briefly. "That confirmation appears to be old. Our system is showing no available reservations under your name for tonight. That doesn't make sense. Can you check the confirmation number directly?" Walsh made a show of typing, his expression suggesting this was a waste of his time. "I'm sorry, but we don't have any record of that reservation, and unfortunately, we're fully booked tonight. There are no rooms available." Darius looked past Walsh to the computer monitor where he could see the hotel's booking system displayed. From his angle, he could see multiple rooms listed as available. Walsh was lying. "Your system shows available rooms," Darius pointed out calmly. Walsh angled the monitor away. "Those are reserved for VIP guests and corporate accounts. They're not available for walk-in bookings." "I'm not a walk-in. I have a confirmed reservation. A reservation that's not in our system." Walsh's tone was becoming more dismissive. "Look, I don't know where you made this supposed reservation, but we don't have any record of it, and we're full tonight." Darius kept his voice level. "Can you call your reservations department to verify, or contact my assistant who made the booking? I can provide her contact information. It's almost 1 a.m. The reservations office is closed, and frankly, sir, I don't have time to track down booking errors. If you don't have a confirmed reservation in our system, I can't help you." Walsh pulled out a brochure from under the desk. "There are several budget hotels a few miles from here. I can call you a cab. The Comfort Inn on Biscayne Boulevard is usually available, or there's a Motel 6 near the airport. Those might be more in your price range anyway." The suggestion was clear. This luxury hotel wasn't for people who looked like Darius. The budget hotels Walsh recommended were in less desirable areas, and the comment about price range was a thinly veiled assumption about Darius's financial status based on his appearance. "I can afford this hotel," Darius said firmly. "What I can't understand is why you're claiming you don't have my reservation and suggesting I go somewhere else." Walsh's expression hardened. "Sir, I've explained the situation. We don't have your reservation, and we're fully booked. I'm trying to help you find alternative accommodations. If you're going to be difficult about this, I can call security." "Difficult?" Darius pulled out his credit card, a black American Express Centurion card, one of the most exclusive credit cards in the world with no spending limit. "I have a reservation, I have means to pay, and I'd like to check in. If my reservation was lost in your system, book me into one of those available rooms I saw on your monitor." Walsh barely glanced at the Centurion card. "Those rooms aren't available, as I've explained, and having an expensive credit card doesn't change our booking situation." Another hotel guest, a white woman in her 60s who'd been waiting in the lobby, approached the desk. Walsh's entire demeanor changed, his smile becoming warm and solicitous. "Good evening, ma'am. How can I help you? I need to arrange an early checkout for tomorrow," the woman said. "Of course. Let me take care of that right away." Walsh efficiently handled her request, chatting pleasantly about her stay and wishing her a good night. As soon as she walked away, Walsh's cold expression returned when he looked back at Darius. "Is there anything else? Because if not, I need to ask you to leave the lobby. This area is for hotel guests only." Darius felt the familiar anger that came with discrimination, the frustration of being judged and dismissed based on appearance rather than who he actually was. But he also felt something else, the power of knowing that Stephen Walsh had just made a catastrophic professional mistake. "I'll be leaving," Darius said calmly, "but I want to make sure I have your name correct. Stephen Walsh, night manager." "That's right. Is there a problem?" "I'll let you know," Darius said, and walked out of the hotel. Once outside, he sat in the hotel's exterior lounge area and pulled out his phone. First, he called his assistant, Maya Patel, despite the late hour. "Maya, I need you to pull up my reservation at the Grand Meridian, Miami. Send me all the confirmation emails, the credit card authorization, everything." Maya, used to Darius's odd-hour requests, responded immediately. "Is everything okay? The night manager just refused to check me in, claimed he had no record of my reservation, and suggested I try a Motel 6. Maya gasped. "He what? Hold on, I'm pulling up the file now. Darius, we have 6 different email confirmations, including one from yesterday, reconfirming your suite upgrade. The reservation is definitely in their system. Send me everything. Screenshots, receipts, confirmation numbers. I want complete documentation." "Done. Sending now. What are you going to do?" "First, I'm going to check into a different hotel and get some sleep. Tomorrow, I'm going to introduce myself to the Grand Meridian's ownership as the person who's considering buying their hotel chain. And I'm going to share my customer experience." He ended the call and dialed another number. "Marcus, it's Darius. I need you to book me a room at the Ritz-Carlton South Beach for tonight. And I need you to schedule an emergency call with the Meridian Hotel Group's executive team for 8 a.m. tomorrow morning." Marcus Lee, Darius's chief operating officer, knew better than to ask too many questions. "Consider it done. Should I be concerned?" "Very concerned. We might be walking away from the Meridian acquisition. I'll explain in the morning." Darius checked into the Ritz-Carlton at 1:37 a.m. The experience was starkly different. The staff was professional, friendly, and didn't question his reservation or his right to be there despite his casual appearance. He was in his suite by 2 a.m., setting his alarm for 6:30 to prepare for the day ahead. At 8:02 a.m., Darius sat in a private conference room at the Ritz-Carlton on a video call with 4 executives from Meridian Hotel Group's corporate headquarters: CEO Patricia Morrison, CFO David Chen, Chief Operations Officer Sandra Williams, and General Counsel Robert Martinez. They'd been expecting a routine update call about the potential acquisition. Instead, Darius opened with a question. Before we discuss financials and deal terms, I want to ask about your company's approach to customer service and non-discrimination policies. Patricia Morrison looked confused. That's an unusual starting point, but we take both very seriously. All our properties adhere to strict service standards and legal compliance. Good to hear, Darius said. Let me share an experience I had last night. He played the audio recording he'd made during his interaction with Stephen Walsh, with timestamps and date verification. Washington State, where Darius's company was headquartered and where he'd recorded numerous business calls, was a two-party consent state, but Florida, where the incident occurred, was a one-party consent state, making the recording legal. The executives' expressions shifted from confusion to alarm as they listened to Walsh refusing service, suggesting budget hotels, questioning Darius's financial means, and ultimately threatening to call security. When the audio ended, Darius said, "That was recorded at your flagship Miami property approximately 9 hours ago. I am the customer who was refused service by your night manager, Stephen Walsh." Patricia's face had gone pale. "Mr. Coleman, I am deeply sorry. This is completely unacceptable. I assure you this doesn't represent our values. Let me show you something else," Darius interrupted. He shared his screen, displaying a comprehensive analysis his team had prepared overnight. "While I couldn't sleep after being refused service at my own hotel reservation, I had my team dig deeper into the Grand Meridian Miami's operations. We pulled online reviews, analyzed complaint patterns, and found something interesting. The spreadsheet showed data from 3 years of online reviews and social media comments. In the past 36 months, the Grand Meridian Miami received 41 complaints from guests or potential guests who reported discriminatory treatment. 37 of those complaints came from Black, Latino, or Asian guests who felt they were treated differently than white guests. Several specifically mentioned Stephen Walsh by name. Sandra Williams, the COO, leaned forward. "We have an internal complaint system. Why weren't these flagged?" "Because most people don't complain formally to the hotel," Darius explained. "They post on social media, leave reviews online, or just never return. Your internal systems only captured 6 formal complaints, but the pattern is much broader." He pulled up specific examples. A Black business executive denied a room despite confirmed reservation, told to try more affordable options. A Latino family given a room far from the elevator in a back corner despite requesting proximity to the pool, while white families with later check-ins got better rooms. An Asian American couple charged a security deposit that white couples weren't required to pay. David Chen, the CFO, was reviewing his own data. "This could represent significant legal liability." "It does," agreed Robert Martinez, the general counsel. "If there's a pattern of discrimination at one of our properties, we're exposed to civil rights complaints, lawsuits, and potentially losing our operating licenses." Darius leaned back in his chair. "Here's my position. I came to Miami to evaluate whether Meridian Hotel Group would be a good acquisition for Coleman Capital. The Grand Meridian Miami was my 4th property visit. The first 3 had minor issues but were generally well run. But last night's experience revealed something deeper. You have a property with systematic discrimination problems, a night manager who feels empowered to refuse service based on racial profiling, and corporate oversight that missed 37 documented complaints over 3 years." He paused. "This tells me that either your oversight systems are inadequate, your corporate culture tolerates discrimination, or both, and that makes me question whether this acquisition is worth the risk." Patricia Morrison spoke quickly. "Mr. Coleman, please give us a chance to address this. We can investigate immediately, take corrective action." "I'm not finished," Darius continued. "What happened to me last night happens to Black travelers constantly. We're questioned at hotel check-ins, followed in stores, stopped by security in places we have every right to be. Usually we just deal with it, move on, maybe post a negative review. But I'm in a different position. I have resources, platform, and the power to demand accountability." He looked at each executive on the screen. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to conduct a comprehensive investigation of the Grand Meridian Miami, with particular focus on Stephen Walsh's tenure. You're going to review all complaints from the past 5 years, contact every person who reported discriminatory treatment, and determine the scope of the problem.
You're going to implement reforms across all your properties, and you're going to make the results public. We can do that, Patricia agreed quickly. I'm not done, Darius said. Stephen Walsh will be terminated today, and I want a personal meeting with him before he leaves. I want him to understand exactly who he refused service to, and why his discrimination has consequences. Robert Martinez interjected. Mr. Coleman, from a legal perspective, it might be better if you don't have direct contact with Walsh. If he files a wrongful termination suit, he won't win, Darius interrupted. The evidence is documented, but I want him to know that his actions have repercussions, not as revenge, but as accountability. Patricia nodded. I'll arrange it. Mr. Coleman, can I ask, are you still interested in the acquisition? Darius considered the question. I'll make that decision after I see how you handle this situation. If you take it seriously, implement real reforms, and demonstrate that discrimination won't be tolerated, then maybe. If this becomes a PR exercise without substance, then no. You have one chance to prove you're serious about change. The call ended at 8:47 a.m. Darius had 13 minutes to get to the convention center for his keynote speech at the Tech Summit. By 10:30 a.m., Stephen Walsh had been summoned to a meeting room at the Grand Meridian, Miami. He'd worked the night shift and was preparing to go home when his supervisor called him back to the hotel. He walked into the conference room to find Patricia Morrison, Sandra Williams, and the Grand Meridian Miami's general manager, Rachel Goldman, whom Walsh hadn't met before, as she'd only been in her position for 2 months. And standing by the window, looking out at the Miami Beach skyline, was the young black man in the hoodie from last night. Walsh's face went from confused to pale as recognition set in. Mr. Walsh, Patricia began, this is Darius Coleman, CEO of Quantum Systems and the lead investor considering purchasing our hotel chain. The same man you refused service to last night. Darius turned from the window. Mr. Walsh, good to see you again. Walsh stammered. I didn't know, you didn't say. I didn't say I was a tech CEO because I shouldn't have to, Darius said calmly. A customer with a confirmed reservation and a valid credit card should receive service regardless of whether you recognize their name or know their net worth. Patricia continued, we've reviewed the audio recording of your interaction with Mr. Coleman. We've also reviewed complaint patterns at this hotel over the past 3 years. Mr. Walsh, you've been named in multiple discrimination complaints that were never properly investigated. She pulled up documentation. A black executive from Atlanta denied a room despite confirmation, with you suggesting more affordable alternatives. An Indian American family told there were no suites available despite the booking system showing 3 open suites. A Latino businessman required to pay a cash deposit that white guests weren't asked to provide. All incidents involving you. Walsh protested weakly. I was following hotel policies. Show me the policy that says to refuse service to guests based on their appearance, Darius challenged. Show me the policy that says to suggest budget hotels to black customers. Show me the policy that justifies lying about room availability. Walsh had no answer. Sandra Williams spoke next. Mr. Walsh, you've been with Meridian Hotels for 11 years. But in that time, you've created a pattern of discriminatory service that has damaged our reputation, exposed us to legal liability, and violated the basic principles of hospitality. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Walsh looked panicked. You can't fire me over one misunderstanding. I have seniority. I've been here for Darlene. This isn't one misunderstanding, Patricia interrupted. This is documented pattern of discrimination over multiple years. We're terminating you for cause, which means no severance package beyond your accumulated vacation pay. Rachel Goldman, the general manager, added, Mr. Walsh, you will also be reported to the Hospitality Industries Ethics Board. This will be part of your employment record and will affect your ability to work in hotel management in the future. Walsh looked at Darius desperately. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I made a mistake. If I'd known who you were. That's exactly the problem, Darius said. You would have treated me differently if you'd known I was wealthy and influential. But I deserved respectful service regardless. Every guest does. And the fact that you only apologize now because you know I have power, that tells me you haven't learned anything. He stepped closer to Walsh. Do you know how many people you've turned away over the years? How many black professionals, Latino families, Asian American travelers who had money to spend and reasons to be in Miami, but you decided they didn't fit this hotel's image? How many business opportunities this hotel lost because you were too busy profiling people to provide service? Walsh had tears in his eyes now, realizing his career was over. I never meant to discriminate. I was just trying to maintain standards. Your standards were based on prejudice, not on hotel policy, Darius said, and now you're facing consequences. Not because I'm vindictive, but because discrimination in the service industry can't go unchallenged. If this happened to me, with all my resources and platform, it's been happening to countless others who had no recourse. Patricia stood. Mr. Walsh, security will escort you to collect your belongings. Your access to hotel systems has been terminated. You have 30 minutes to leave the property. As Walsh was led out, broken and crying, Darius felt no satisfaction. Destroying one person's career wasn't the goal. Changing the system was. Over the next 3 months, Meridian Hotel Group conducted a comprehensive audit of all 12 properties in their chain. What they found was disturbing but not surprising to Darius. The Grand Meridian Miami wasn't unique. 7 of the 12 properties showed patterns of discriminatory treatment in complaints and online reviews. The company implemented sweeping reforms. 1. Pressed universal service standards, clear, objective criteria for room assignment, reservation verification, and guest services that eliminated manager discretion to refuse service based on appearance or assumptions. Bias training, mandatory training for all staff, with particular focus on front desk and management personnel who had direct guest contact. 3. Complaint tracking, enhanced systems for monitoring and investigating discrimination complaints, including regular review of online reviews and social media mentions. 4. Secret shopper program, regular undercover evaluations by diverse testers to ensure policies were being followed in practice, not just on paper. 5. Accountability measures, manager compensation and promotion tied partly to satisfaction scores from diverse guest populations, creating financial incentive for equitable service. 6. Public transparency, annual reports on guest demographics, complaint patterns and diversity metrics to demonstrate commitment to equitable service. The reforms cost $4.2 million to implement and resulted in the termination of 6 employees, including 3 managers, who couldn't adapt to the new standards. But within 6 months the results were clear. Guest satisfaction scores increased across all demographic categories. Online reviews improved. Repeat business from previously underserved markets grew significantly, and Meridian Hotel Group's reputation recovered from the scandal. Most importantly, Black, Latino, and Asian American travelers who'd previously avoided Meridian hotels began giving them second chances, often commenting in reviews that they'd noticed genuine change in how they were treated. After reviewing the reforms and their implementation, Darius decided to proceed with the acquisition. Coleman Capital purchased Meridian Hotel Group for $487 million, with Darius taking an active role as board chair to ensure the reforms continued. The acquisition made headlines. Tech billionaire buys hotel chain after being refused room. The story sparked national conversations about discrimination in the hospitality industry and the power of using economic leverage to create change. Stephen Walsh became a cautionary tale in hospitality management courses, his case studied as an example of how individual bias could create institutional liability and career-ending consequences. Walsh himself struggled to find work in the hospitality industry. The Ethics Board report followed him to every job application. He eventually left Miami and found work in property management in a small town in North Carolina, a significant step down from his previous position. In a later interview with a journalist writing about workplace discrimination, Walsh admitted, "I thought I was doing my job by being selective about guests. I thought I was protecting the hotel's image, but I was really just discriminating based on my own prejudices. I didn't see it then because the people I turned away couldn't do anything about it. When Darius Coleman had the power to hold me accountable, I suddenly saw the pattern I'd been perpetuating for years, but by then it was too late." 2 years after the incident, Darius stood on stage at the NAACP Image Awards, accepting recognition for his work in combating discrimination in the business sector. In his speech, he reflected on that night at the Grand Meridian. "When Stephen Walsh refused to check me into my own hotel reservation, he didn't know he was discriminating against someone who could buy his employer. Most people he discriminated against over the years didn't have that power. They just experienced the indignity, maybe left a bad review and moved on with their lives. But that's exactly why those of us with power and resources have a responsibility to use them for change, not just for our own benefit, but for all the people who will come after us. When I bought Meridian Hotel Group, I didn't do it to punish Stephen Walsh or to get revenge. I did it because I had the means to transform an entire system that was allowing discrimination to flourish." He continued, "There are Stephen Walshes in hotels, restaurants, banks, retail stores, and every other industry. They're gatekeepers who use their positions to discriminate, usually subtly, usually with coded language about standards and fit. And they get away with it because most of their victims don't have recourse. My message to anyone in a position of power is this: you have a choice. You can use your power just for personal advancement, or you can use it to change systems that harm people who don't have your advantages. When you face discrimination and you have the resources to respond, you have a responsibility to respond, not just for yourself, but for everyone else facing the same discrimination without your power." The speech resonated across social media, with many people sharing their own stories of discrimination in hotels and other service industries. Several other hotel chains announced new discrimination prevention programs, whether out of genuine commitment or fear of becoming the next Meridian Hotel Group. 5 years after the incident, Meridian Hotel Group under Darius's leadership had expanded to 23 properties, won multiple awards for diversity and inclusion, and became the preferred hotel chain for many professional organizations and conferences that valued equitable service. The Grand Meridian Miami, once known for discriminatory treatment, was now recognized as a model of inclusive hospitality. The hotel staff included people from diverse backgrounds at all levels, and the property actively marketed to underserved communities. Darius visited the Miami property regularly, always checking in without fanfare, observing how guests were treated regardless of their appearance. On one visit, he overheard a conversation at the front desk. A young black man in casual clothes was checking in. The desk clerk, a white woman in her 30s, greeted him warmly. "Welcome to the Grand Meridian, Mr. Johnson. We have you in a suite on the 23rd floor with an ocean view, as requested. Is this your first time staying with us?" "It is," the man replied. "I've heard good things about the changes here over the past few years. We're proud of our commitment to serving all guests with equal excellence," the clerk said genuinely. "If there's anything we can do to make your stay more comfortable, please don't hesitate to ask." As the guest headed to the elevator, Darius approached the clerk. "That was excellent service." She smiled. "Thank you. Are you a guest here as well?" "Yes, I'm Darius Coleman. I own the hotel." Her eyes widened. "Oh, Mr. Coleman, I didn't recognize you. I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize," Darius interrupted. "The fact that you treated that guest with respect without knowing who I was is exactly right. That's how every guest should be treated, whether they're a regular traveler or the owner. You did your job perfectly." The clerk smiled with relief. "Thank you, sir. We've learned a lot about what true hospitality means. The old way, the way some people used to operate. We know now that wasn't hospitality. It was discrimination, dressed up as standards."
Darius nodded. "Keep doing what you're doing, and if you ever see discrimination here, I want you to report it immediately. This hotel will never go back to what it was." As he rode the elevator to his suite, Darius thought about that night 5 years ago when Stephen Walsh had turned him away. That moment of discrimination had been painful and frustrating, but it had also been a catalyst for transformation that affected thousands of guests and employees across an entire hotel chain. One person's prejudice had exposed a systemic problem, and one person's power, wielded with intention, had created lasting change. That was the lesson Darius wanted people to understand. Discrimination wasn't just about individual bad actors. It was about systems that enabled and protected those bad actors. And changing those systems required people with power to use that power for more than personal benefit. Stephen Walsh had discriminated against the wrong person, not because Darius was richer or more important than other guests Walsh had turned away, but because Darius had the resources and determination to ensure that what happened to him wouldn't keep happening to others. That was the real victory. Not one night manager losing his job, but an entire industry being forced to reckon with its discriminatory practices. Not one billionaire getting his hotel room, but thousands of travelers no longer facing the indignity of being judged unworthy of service because of their skin color. That was worth more than any luxury suite. That was the power of refusing to accept discrimination silently.
Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.